What's the difference between this and this? Well, one of these is a steaming pile of rancid goat feces, and the other is Mass Effect 2. But hold on, how did two classic games get two sequels made by the same studio and end up in completely different ways? Well, that's the question of the day. What makes a video game sequel bad or awesome? In the entertainment industry, everybody wants a successful brand. Because hey, if people love this thing, then they'll want more of it. And if they want more, then that means you don't have to create something new. You can shelve all your risky original ideas in favor of making what's safe and established. The concept of sequels has been around a while. The Bible too retconned a lot of the lore in the original. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if it's written by the same person. With video games, the goal of a sequel is held in the hands of the developers and their intentions. What are they trying to achieve? Do they have the resources to do it? Is this a good idea?
No.
There's a lot of questions that need serious answers if you want the finished product to turn out like this.
Every soul contains a whisper of light.
And not like this. It can get real confusing to balance and identify the needs of the fans, especially when the same franchise is created by one group of people and then handed off to another. Gotta be aware of franchise fatigue, there's competition with other developers, strict deadlines. Game development, man. It's a hard gig. So, we're gonna take a look at some awesome sequels, some bad, and a few middle of the road, to give you a taste of what works, what doesn't, and why. But before we get into that, camera swap. This video is sponsored by something I'm real excited for. Opera GX, the world's first browser tailor-made for gamers. And let me tell you folks, this new browser is awesome. Of course it has everything you'd expect from an internet browser, but it also has a ton of incredible features like GX Control. You can set limits on how much RAM and CPU the browser tabs use. The Hot Tabs Killer app shows how much RAM and CPU each tab uses. There's also a network limiter to help you maintain your bandwidth and gives you all the tools you need to manage performance and lag. GX also comes with an integrated VPN as well as the Chrome extension tool. Now what I find really cool is the GX Corner, which gives you a calendar to keep you updated on upcoming game releases, as well as relevant gaming news. Not to mention it also shows you the best deals you can get, as well as free games available to download. But it doesn't stop there. Opera GX is also integrated with Discord and Twitch. It's as easy as signing in and then bam, you've got access to Discord and Twitch right from the sidebar. You can also join Opera's Discord server, where they have bi-weekly giveaways and contests. Of course, Opera GX also gives you full control over the customization, including sound effects, color palettes. If you game on PC, this is the best browser you can get, hands down. And the best part is, you can download it for free using the link in the description and on screen. Improve your performance on PC with Opera GX. Thank you for sponsoring this video. With that being said, let's jump straight into this.
The highly anticipated sequel to the 2003 Game of the Year. Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords.
When brainstorming ideas for a sequel, first thing you gotta think about is it a direct follow-up? Will it continue the story and characters of the previous entry? If you're making a Mario platformer or some other game that doesn't focus much on narrative, congratulations, you don't have to worry about this at all, just make the game fun. But for everyone else, this can be difficult. Let's go back to my original example on how these two games perfectly illustrate both ends of the spectrum. While Mass Effect 2 honors the first game while enhancing every aspect of design and introduces new stuff that builds upon it, the choices we made directly carried over. Favorite characters return and new ones arrive. BioWare gave us more of what we loved and less of what we didn't.
Oh my God!
Graphics, story, gameplay, all improved, all innovated. Dragon Age 2, on the other hand, not faithful to the original in anything but name. The gameplay morphed from a strategic RPG into a shallow beat-em-up. BioWare cut corners everywhere, literally copying the same dungeon layout countless times. The easiest way to show you this contrast is a simple comparison. Here's what the main enemy, the Darkspawn, looked like in Origins. Pretty fearsome, impressive. And here's what they look like 2 years later.
Jesus Christ!
Yup, that sums up the whole thing. So okay, within 3 minutes of starting Dragon Age 2, I see you've butchered the art style, made the graphics look like shit, and...
I know how much
oh,
Lothar
cool!
meant to you.
A voiced protagonist with dialogue wheels. Okay, that's what I played Mass Effect for, but not Dragon Age, but okay. At least I have a huge world to explore. Oh no, I'm stuck in this stupid-ass city? What about the story? Well, if you enjoy a narrative-driven game with no clear goal or direction, if you want to be bored into a coma, if you didn't care about the story and Origins, Dragon Age 2 has got you covered.
Make us, save us. We've lost it all.
So I ask again, what's the difference? Well, one made objective improvements based on a successful formula, and the other totally disregarded the successful formula, changing it into something unrecognizable. Dragon Age 2 is not just a bad game, it's a worse sequel. But that's what it comes down to, the formuolae. If you ever wondered how Nintendo has stayed relevant for 35 years, it's because their biggest franchises respect that initial formula. Now, of course, you can totally experiment, but as long as you stay true to that formula in some regard, people will be happy. This is why games like Dead Space 3, Fallout 76, and Metal Gear Survive were heavily criticized, because they lacked respect. Which brings me to my next question. What constitutes improvement? Sequels carry a higher expectation of quality than a spin-off or expansion. There's hardly ever drama around something like Brood War or Lord of Destruction, ODST, because these games aren't marketed as brand new. But when a company promises one thing and delivers another, that's a different story. So how about them annual sports games, am I right? Back in the day, you couldn't update a cartridge. So as new players entered the pro scene and old players left, it made sense for annual sequels to coincide with the start of a new season. It was still cheap and greedy, but it made sense. Despite having the technology years ago to simply update the current Madden's roster, companies like EA still peddle out brand new games as if this version of hockey, basketball, soccer, football is the bestest version of them all. Well, I got news for you, ain't got nothing on NFL Blitz or NBA Jam. I mean, how many possible sequels can you make on the same game played by the same rulebook? Imagine being so complacent and uninspired you recycle the same celebration animation 4 years in a row. Imagine completely forgetting to swap out the year of the game within the game. Eventually, with franchises that have annual releases, it's gonna backfire, and one day, you'll have a complete disaster of a game on your hands. But in terms of story, with direct sequels, you have to feel like your actions in the first game matter here. Halo 2, perfect example. It opens up and it's like, "You done goofed, Arbiter, for Master Chief destroyed Halo in Combat Evolved." Immediately, the connection between these two games is made. Witcher 3, KOTOR 2, Mass Effect 2 and 3 all do this. Your actions in the previous game affects the story currently, but all these games are written in a way that allows newcomers to shape the story as if they played them.
That's the way it's done.
Now, if you title your game Black Ops 3 and it has nothing to do with 1 and 2, that's a problem. Why does this campaign have nothing to do with the originals? Why does it make no sense? Why? What? Why? You might think you can simply measure the distance between point A and point B and say, the larger the gap, the more a game is improved. To that I say,
that wizard came from the moon.
the original Destiny has one of the worst written stories in video game history.
You must have no end of questions, Guardian.
Now that's embarrassing enough coming from world-renowned developer Bungie, but it's even more cringe-inducing when you realize the game had a $500 million budget. And this is what we got.
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
Destiny 2 made some huge advancements. It actually had characters with personality. What? And they wanted things and weren't just expository robots. There was a villain and not some vague entity that never appears. In actual conflict. It kind of felt like Destiny 2 had a story. Originally, I struggled reviewing Destiny 2 because if the bar is set so low, is it worth praising if it exceeds that? I later realized no. Improvement is always going to be subjective, but it will be influenced by standards. Standards that companies set for their franchises. You better be pretty damn confident in this Super Mario World thing if it's a follow-up to Mario 3. Oh my god, it's amazing! Well, you better be pretty damn confident in this Super Mario 64 thing if it's gonna be a follow-up to holy shit! You better be pretty damn confident in this Super Mario Sunshine thing if... I'll shut up now. The problem with sequels is the better you do, the higher expectations become, and the harder it is to meet those expectations. If you lack the confidence in delivering on that, then you either become a myth like Half-Life 3, or a joke like Duke Nukem Forever.
What about the game, Duke? Was it any good?
Yeah, but after 12 years, it should be.
But it's also essential to judge a game based on its merit and how it fits into the series. Super Paper Mario is a horrible follow-up to Thousand Year Door. Terrible sequel, decent game. Of course, if fans have seen the same feature or mechanic in every sequel, and then it's just taken away, it can be pretty jarring. Above all else, a sequel should strive to be better than the original, or at least provide the same type of exhilaration. But who determines what makes a sequel awesome or bad? The fans. Let me tell you, we are a fickle bunch. A lot of this comes down to our individual preferences. My rule of thumb is, I loved this, do it 10% better. But it's not always that simple, especially when franchises expand and fans have their own subgroups with conflicting desires. To sprint or not to sprint? One weapon or two? Real-time strategy or MMORPG? 2D or 3D platformer? Naturally, whatever choice a developer makes in this position is going to leave some fans pleased and others not. But the devs always want to make the biggest crowd happy. So what do they change? Where do they innovate? And what remains constant? This is where community managers shine brightest. By navigating the mixed signals, identifying what people really want, and relaying that to the programmers and leadership, the company has a better chance of success. A poor connection with your fan base can be catastrophic and lead to resentment. Yeah! Origami King is what happens when a company stubbornly refuses to listen to their fans. There's no mistaking what most people want. Turn-based RPG with experience points, difficulty, great story and writing, but Intelligent Systems made 3 consecutive games that fervently discouraged combat. 3 times in a row, we've complained about it, and for 8 years, those complaints have fallen on deaf ears.
The most common criticism has been the very flawed battle system. This comes from how Nintendo and Intelligent Systems have tried to step away from the series' RPG roots, while still holding on to core systems that fall apart without those roots in place.
Occasionally ditching an old formula and revamping it can have incredible results. World of Warcraft, for instance. But if it doesn't, if your weird little science project doesn't wow us the way you want it to, then you might consider returning to that style that people didn't hate in the first place. Or, just stick with basing your games on one-dimensional paper gimmicks. I'm sure Paper Mario and the Folded Phantom will turn out great. And if you misread your audience, you may end up putting all your eggs in one basket. Hey boss, everyone's talking about how awesome Dark Souls is and its difficulty. What should we do with the sequel? They want difficult, we'll give them difficult. Pump in as much artificial challenge as you can. Sir, don't you think we should put more thought into Tell them they're going to die. Make them suffer in pain. Oversaturate the game with terrible boss fights. Triple the amount of enemies. And that connected level design, that's gotta go. It's also mind-boggling when a trend becomes popular and every developer tries to latch onto it, as evidenced by Call of Duty's piss-poor attempts at copying Titanfall. Let's integrate advanced movement mechanics but keep the same restrictive invisible barriers that nullify these new mechanics entirely. Let's not put any thought into anything. Hey, guess what? Knights of the Old Republic, Dragon Age, and Fallout were all better franchises when they weren't copying Mass Effect's dialogue wheel. Am I making any sense at all? Is this thing on? There's certain risks involved in making a sequel, but like Halo 3 once said, sometimes you gotta finish the fight. Certain things have to remain constant though, like the voice acting.
And you shall be left behind,
blackened from its hold to mar the reflection of our passage.
It certainly breaks immersion when two different people voice the same character, but Halo 3's consistency problems are nowhere near Halo 4's. Any longtime fan of the series at this point could tell Halo 4 was definitely not made by the same people that made 3. An impression you probably don't want to give people right out the gate. The iconic art style and Mjolnir armor was inexplicably altered without reason. Master Chief and Cortana act and talk completely unlike their old selves. But what's at the core of my issues here? It's not the change itself, but rather the lack of transition. If you want to change the dynamic between Chief and Cortana and his armor and the art style, give me a reason for that. Give me a reason to accept this change. Otherwise, you're gonna scare me off. It's interesting how some sequels can get away with making minimal changes and still be praised. The Ace Attorney trilogy is fantastic in this regard. Mega Man 1 through 6 and Banjo-Tooie, these games may be too faithful to the original, but they embody the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's a tranquil beauty in that type of consistency. Ideally, we want a natural progression in quality like this graph, steadily increasing. But at a certain point you reach a plateau and the only thing you hope for is that they don't fuck it up. Aside from sports games, I believe Mario Party holds the record for most numerical entries in a game franchise. Now, when you find yourself critically examining how a series of virtual board games evolved over time, you need to take a step back and ask yourself this. Why are we all in a goddamn car? What is this? And that is the reaction you don't want your fans to have. What is this? Versus, what is this? Mario Party is all over the place. First 3 were very consistent, with 3 being the pinnacle of this series. 4 through 8 experimented, kept the same formula, but were never as great as 3. 9 and 10 didn't even care. And Super Mario Party basically wanted to get things back on track. But despite its inconsistency, Mario Party has enough entries where it's not a huge deal if one changes from the next. However, sometimes a small change in game design can have
severe consequences.
In Mario Party 5, you can't buy items. So coins are worthless and so is this game. It's hard to draw the line between rehashing and reinventing, because change is hard to sell. If you ask me, I'd prefer the same experience I love being beaten to death over seeing a franchise I love forsake its roots. This is why I can embrace the 17th Call of Duty and not the 6th Paper Mario, because at least Treyarch is trying to make the thing I love. But the worst type of sequel is when any sense of pride, dignity, and passion is discarded in favor of a quick buck. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Then you got some franchises that don't even know what they are or what genre they're trying to be. Star Fox, what is that, arcade flying shooter? No, it's action adventure. No, wait, it's a third-person shooter. I don't have a clue what this is. At least Sonic has always been consistent, right? Even if you think a franchise is deader than dinosaurs, with a good enough premise, there's always hope for redemption. While the Sonic Steamboat had crashed down 8 waterfalls, Sonic Mania single-handedly turned that boat around and marched straight up. For so long, Sonic games strayed from what made them initially popular, and it was like a flick of the switch, a return to the roots that paid the real dividends. Now, what's the difference between iteration and innovation? Well, you want to iterate, provide the same exciting experience, and innovate by making it different. The Legend of Zelda creators were very smart, because they can innovate and iterate without tying each game together or really pissing off fans. Zelda's narrative may more or less be the same each time around, but it works because virtually everything else changes. Defeating Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time is completely different than in Breath of the Wild or Wind Waker. But when do the successful, familiar concepts transition into tired tropes? When does franchise fatigue start to set in? Well, it starts with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Let's look at the villainous faction. Team Rocket. Okay, cool. Pokemon Mafia. Team Rocket again. Sweet. Revenge Time. Team Magma and Aqua. I guess that's still kinda unique. What's it gonna be this time? Team Galaxy. Really? Team Plasma. You wanna take this in a new direction? Team Flare. Are we gonna get the same thing? Team Skull. Okay, I have no expectation. Team Yell. How many teams can there possibly be? Just because your formula has proven successful in the past doesn't mean you shouldn't try new things. Pokemon has had virtually the same story for 16 years. But why does Zelda get away with it and not Pokemon? Because Zelda innovates and iterates. So what makes a sequel bad or awesome? Well, it often comes down to how the source material is treated. Do the developers respect the formula, the recipe, and treat it with care? What makes a follow-up awesome is if innovations add to the core gameplay and not take away. Every new entry should feel like an extension of the last. And if franchise fatigue starts to set in, if you lose your way, give it a rest and maybe go down reboot or remake lane. But the problem with sequels lies within our expectations. There's only so many ways you can outdo yourself before reaching a plateau. We live in a beautiful world, filled with amazing franchises and hundreds of thousands of game developers all vying for our attention and money. Let's give it to those that are worthy of it. All I'm trying to say is if we can get 17 Call of Duties, 11 Mario Parties, and 87 Madden games, can Conker please get 2?